this. So I want to introduce to you Dwain Celistan, and I'm going to let him talk about all of his credentials and all the good stuff and just let him dive right in to this presentation. So Dwain, the show is yours.
Great. Well, good afternoon, early afternoon. Glad that you guys worked me into your calendar. So we will jump right in. And look, by way of background, I'm an executive recruiter, so I work with a global search firm. And the way we work is companies hire us to go find them leadership talent. That's essentially the model. I lead our global diversity practice, and 70% of the people I place are diverse. And we define diversity as women globally and women and people of color in the US. As you can see from my client list, here are some logos. Many of them are organizations you are probably familiar with, like Raytheon, American Family, Manpower, DEER. But I also work with many smaller entities and not-for-profits, and there are a couple of educational institutions there. I've been a recruiter about 13 years, but I spent most of my career in the industry, in marketing and sales capacities. So leading large teams, having substantial budgets, and having an opportunity to work with really good global organizations. I've written a few books. I have done some executive coaching, a lot of articles, and I joined Delta Sigma Pi at Loyola University in New Orleans. So been a member of the organization for about 40 years or so. Now, enough about me. I have only a couple of polling questions, but I thought this would be a good way to start. And since we only have a few of us, it's easy to do. So when we think about clients, organizations saying, why do we provide diverse talent? Is it because it's the right thing to do? It's politically correct? Firms expect it, or it can be the best talent? So why do you think that is something that we do? It's not that hard. Okay, can be the best talent. You other two folks, just click the button and we'll be good to go. This is the interactive portion.
At least one person may be on their mobile
We got
device.
two. All right, good.
There we go.
I was expecting
Yeah,
you.
I think Dwain, I think we have someone who's driving, so they can't participate like this right now, but they're listening in. Oh, there they go. We got them.
3 for 3. Good. Okay.
All right.
Well, yes, and I do think it can be the best talent, and that's part of what we want to talk about. So our goals for today are threefold. One, to highlight the value of diversity, because it may be a little bit different than you think, or it may be the same, but I wanted to provide you some information that I share with those variety of clients that I work with. Wanted to give you a couple of tools so that you can actively go out and bring some diverse members into your chapters or organizations outside of your chapters, and share a few examples that have worked. So as mentioned, the way we define diversity is women globally and women and people of color in the US. Now, is it worth it though? That's the real question. And more specifically, do you think diverse leaders add more financial value to the organization? Because it's one thing to say they add value from a richness of different thinking and those things, but does it bring more to the bottom line? Does it bring more to your fundraising, whatever it is that your organization is trying to accomplish? And you guys said, yes, it must be too easy leading the witness. But yeah, McKinsey's done some work on this subject. And they've shown that when there are 2 or more women on the board, for example, incredibly high performance relative to their peer group. So if they're looking at pharmaceutical firms, they're comparing it to pharmaceutical firms. They're not comparing pharmaceutical to retail, for example. And when there are 3 women on the board, the data is even more robust in terms of how much better that organization performs than their peers. And when you think about it from a startup standpoint, which is a very different type of entity, right? typically small, scrappy, many times skewed by all male founders. The data shows that when you have a woman in that founding group, their performance is better. And there's some similar data that McKinsey has done that showed similarly when you have ethnic minorities in leadership capacities and on boards, that the improvement is pretty dramatic, double digit relative to not. So there is data that supports it. But, that's broad. I'd like to really share with you a little bit on some of our clients' examples. But before I get to that, I want to share with you a little bit, just two quick slides on some of the theory behind how it works. So for those of you who've taken STAT, which I think will be everyone, as you know, it's a normal distribution, right? If you take 100 people, let's say 100 account managers, 100 chief financial officers, 100 procurement persons, you're going to get 60% of those people are going to be average. You're going to get 20% that are going to be a little better, 20% a little worse. What I found to be true is that normal distribution applies for all the roles that I've worked on. But what I also have found when I'm looking at diverse talent as I've defined it, they tend to be at the top portion of the distribution curve. And the way to think about it is simple. If you have someone that runs on the track, we're in the Olympics, right? Someone's running on the track and they run a 5-minute mile. That is impressive, particularly if they're not an Olympian. If they're Olympian, they have to have a better number. But if they're just a good runner, a 5-minute mile is impressive. But if you run a 5-minute mile and you run on uneven terrain, gravel roads, up and down hills, into the wind and rain, and you have those two runners run over time, that diverse candidate that tends to have more obstacles and hurdles and headwinds, when you put them on a regular track, they tend to perform as well or better than everybody else. And that's why they're at the top end. They're rarely at the bottom end because you can't run a 5-minute mile as a senior executive if you've had all those headwinds and then come down on the track and run a 6-minute. That's just not likely to occur. The probability of that occurring is really low. And in my career, I've not seen many examples of that. So what I'd like to share with you are 3 case studies because, that's all theory. I want to give you 3 meaningful examples of how this has played out. So Aramark was a client. They were about $12 billion at the time. And they had about $6 billion in spend, where they would essentially buy goods to then subsequently create meals, what have you, for their customers. And on that $6 billion of spend, they would save about $5 million per year. So essentially doing an okay job. Not bad, not good, just fine. They knew there was more opportunity, and so they needed a new leader to help realize that opportunity. So what they charged us with was not only getting their SVP of supply chain, and then he subsequently said we needed some more talent. So we put in 5 people. 3 of them were diverse as per the definition. And they, within 12 to 18 months, they went from saving 5 million to saving well over 40 million. And once they got to the optimized team level, about 18 or so months out, they were saving 60 million. It was so noteworthy that they were sharing this information in their quarterly report outs to Wall Street. Heretofore, this was not a topic at all. So dramatically different performance. Next example is Bosch. Bosch is a large German-based conglomerate. They have automotive parts and a whole host of different types of divisions. The division that we worked with was HVAC, heating, venting, air conditioning. And they had made a small division a little larger with 2 acquisitions. In 3 years post this acquisition, they just had not performed well. Their sales were not improving. In fact, they had declined virtually every year of the 3 years So that does not look like a great investment when the goal is to add these additional entities so you can be bigger, stronger, and better. So we went out and we found Mel to lead their sales organization, and they tracked their performance. They had a quota by month, and I met with Mel later, about 3 years in, and he said in his first 28 months, he met or exceeded plan 26 of those months. And in his first 2 years, the revenue was up 50% from when he walked in the door. 50%. So again, not an insignificant difference for a large company in a very competitive space. The last example is First Student. First Student, they're the largest organization that transports children to and from school, about 6 million children a day in the normal school period. And they have area general managers. So one general manager may be responsible for, call it 20 to $50 million in revenue responsibility and all the people and the equipment that comes with it. So in Boston, they had a little bit of an issue. They were, the person left for whatever reason, retired or what have you, but they didn't want to promote from within because they felt they needed some fresh thinking, fresh blood. So we went out and we hired Jessica. Jessica also happened to be gay. I didn't know that during the interview process. And they were ranked about 46 out of 48. Within a year, so I interviewed her like 2 years later for an opportunity to get promoted within the company. They hired me and they said, let's look at some internal talent and let's look at external talent. She happened to be one of the internal persons. And what I learned was in her first 12 months, they went from rank 46 to she was within the first year nip and tuck for number 1 or 2. Incredible difference in performance. Now, I could go on and on with additional examples, but I wanted to share this with the group, and I shared this with many because you want to see this theory in practice and with real organizations. And what I found is the best way to get diverse talent in your organization, on your team, in your chapter is to actively pursue diverse talent, diverse persons. It all starts with you. It all starts with you saying, this would be an enhancement to our chapter's ability to deliver our mission. So what I'd like to do is see if any of you have any successes that you'd like to share from your chapter or organization you've been a part of.
You're welcome to just unmute yourself if you'd like to share anything or ask a question.
So I guess due to the quiet space here, I'll go ahead and just jump in.
Please.
Great.
So one of the things that my chapter had done whenever I was a collegiate was working with the International Students Organization. It kind of started out with, kind of co-sponsoring a couple events here and there, but then, each organization kind of learned a little bit about each other and, kind of got some members through the International Students Organization because they, just from working with each other, they were comfortable with, okay, this is how your events run and everything. And this is how, now we know how you all operate. So, we feel a lot more comfortable with, stepping into something like a fraternity. And especially like, a lot of international students, they don't tend to see Greek life and everything like that. So they tend to shy away from it because they just aren't used to the concept sometimes. So, just having them kind of be comfortable and see that, okay, it's not, what you may hear about and what you may see in movies and TV and everything like that. And they see, the actual, good that the organization does. It made them a lot more comfortable with saying, okay, well, sure, I'll try it out or whatever. And then once you get a couple people that get in there and kind of like see what it is on the inside, and then they can, kind of attest to everybody else that, it's a great organization and everything like that. It just brings a lot more of that comfortability. So
No, great example. Thank you very much, James.
Mhm.
Melanie, I saw you had unmuted.
I was just going to say the chapter that I initiated into, we have a very diverse campus already. So recruiting diverse prospects was never really an issue. But I actually just jumped into recruiting. So I'm taking in all of the information that you're giving me and trying to apply it into what I'm doing right now. So thanks for all of this. It came in at like a really opportune time, actually.
Oh, excellent. Well, thanks. I think I had a couple other slides I wanted to share. And kind of in summary from a presentation standpoint, diverse talent is worth the effort. So sometimes you have to wonder, we're doing just fine as an organization doing the things we're doing. Is it worth the effort to make these adjustments? And the answer is absolutely yes. And when you think about organizations beyond the chapter and you're in the perhaps you're trying to start involved with a startup or you in your career, you say, well, if I go with diverse talent, do I need to adjust my expectations on how well they perform? And the answer is absolutely not. One never lowers the bar on expectations for talent to join an organization. Because if you do, you will get what you expect. You'll get lower performance from those people who have a lower bar. Keep the bar high. There's no need to adjust the bar. You just need to actively look for the pool of talent that meets your needs. And lastly, as Melanie just shared, I think James, you shared in a slightly different way, the diverse talent is there. It's all around you. Be it in another organization, another group of students, or your student population is already diverse. They just may or may not be as as many participants in our chapters, but the diverse talent's all around. And when you think about for a company or organization outside of school, the same exists. The pool might not be as readily available when you look at, I'm in a particular niche. I do taxes, I'm in aerospace, I'm in certain kind of retail. So it may not be quite as obvious. You may have to look beyond just what's outside that neighborhood to find the talent, but the talent does exist. So when you think about ideas, particularly for you, Melanie, but it applies a little differently for companies, but I think James gave a great example, invite a different range of students to activities. I thought that was a great example of, hey, there are students in these other parts of the business school that are not a part of us. Let's invite them and actively recruiting those other types of students that may be in attendance. International was an easy one, but there are other types that you may not. Maybe it's the students that commute versus the students on campus, for example. Create a new event is always a good one because one of the things that I learned when I was in the collegiate chapter was there were so many different events that other chapters conducted that we didn't do. And we had a really robust approach, but it's not like we could do everything. So there are other events that you can creatively borrow from other chapters that might work incredibly well in your chapter that would be new and exciting and fun. And then I think lastly, professors are also aware of other students that might be right in line with the type of students that you'd like to get, and they can be helpful in facilitating, a conversation with those students or encouraging them to come to a Delta Sigma Pi event so they can see for themselves. So those are a few thought starters that hopefully will be helpful. And that was really the end of the prepared remarks. Any thoughts, questions, comments on anything we've discussed?
Jim, you have a question?
Yeah, just, like I said before, kind of helped keep the conversation and everything going and everything. I know, like, one of the things that I've noticed, like, coming from I'll say a poorer state. I'm from West Virginia.
Blessed by God, Virginia.
Yeah, there you go. And yeah, like, just coming from an area like that where, like, you're going to school with other people that, may not kind of have that financial background, or maybe they're, the first person from their family that's going to college and everything like that. You kind of see that in the other students around you, but then whenever you start looking at other chapters and everything like that, and then whenever you start going out into the work world, that's also a different way that you can look for diversity, or, people that have had to figure out how can we do the most with less, and, we're always trying to save money where we can as business people, and that can, help out a lot, especially if you're a smaller chapter that may be struggling and everything like that. Which maybe that's the reason why, is because you are in one of those areas. But yeah, it's just, trying to keep your eyes open for all types of diversity, whether it's, geographic, and yeah, there's a whole bunch of different ways that people can kind of bring that diverse thought and everything like that. Because, like, even though I'm a white male and everything, and I'm not typically diverse, I do see, oh, okay, that's one thing that I may have that somebody else doesn't, is that, they did come from a poor area. I came from a large family. I'm the youngest of six. Not a lot of people have siblings in that way. I'm currently a stay-at-home parent, so that's not, the typical. It's getting more typical, but still not, the norm or anything. But just looking for those other things that you may not traditionally see. So
No, I think that's a helpful perspective. But I do think that so one thing that I learned in my corporate career is that you can't if you think about a P&L, there's the cost side, but then there's the revenue side. And one thing that you can't do is save your way to success. So you have to figure out creative ways to build the top line. And so one, I'm in an organization this year, two separate things. So we the things we would normally do in COVID we couldn't do, fundraising activities. So we uncovered, somebody else did a digital fundraiser, digital party. So they were able to get people from outside of the local area to participate. Beyond that, we got sponsors that we typically didn't get. We got sponsors from, different entities. Excuse me, local business people, car dealer, insurance guy, that kind of jeweler, But we went from, our biggest event might have been, $5,000. We raised over 50,000. So this is, like, if, so it's just being aware of the possibilities that can maybe change the dial. And this just happened 3 months ago. So this is not like some historic story. And all my examples are current. They aren't like happened 100 years ago. So, there are ways to challenge the team, which is why you need different people on the team. Because if it was the same team, we keep saying, yeah, we have to do the same in-person events. Oh, we can't do those events. Oh, woe is us. We can't raise money. And so we had some different people looking, listening differently. And, we were able to find something that was, demonstrably better than all the in-person things we never even conceived of, like years of all of that other stuff. So, I just continue to challenge the team. It's not a static world. And we have so many chapters, for example, that I remember when I was on my undergraduate chapter, we were really successful chapter. So we were doing, we just winning awards and all that kind of jazz. And we just kept pushing every year, but we are very big, very active. But then there were other chapters with, smaller, fewer members, and, they didn't have the resources of numbers. So for a smaller chapter, like, well, what do we do to get the numbers up? Because if I get more numbers, instead of having 5, 7 people, we can get to 17. What's it take to get to 7? So you see what I'm saying is this different way to look at how do we solve the puzzle to get where we need to get. Melanie?
I was going to ask a question unrelated to chapters, but more of a work situation.
Sure.
We're doing a lot of, we're focusing a lot on sourcing D&I candidates, because that's where it starts, right? We need the pool. We also are running into a problem where we're taking too much time, because now it's a requirement. Like, these are your numbers, these are your metrics that you have to meet. You don't have enough diversity, and we don't want you presenting candidates to our hiring managers that are not diversity candidates. How would you, I guess, balance having and meeting those diversity numbers versus the candidate experience where they're waiting maybe a week or two longer to get through the interview process, and then on the practice side, our hiring managers are waiting even longer to get those diverse candidates even seen?
Um, so typically in the world we live in, there are fewer in the diverse pool, right? So if you said, account executive or something, they're just going to be in a more senior the role, the fewer there will be, particularly if you say in a particular county, you think of the average county, not like LA County or some gigantic city county, but the typical county is just only so many diverse people, particularly in an average US county. So there are a couple of things that we've done. Because I've spoken to clients who have that challenge. One is you need to, one way to look at it is get a running start. So you say, well, in 2 months or 6 months, you think you will need these kinds of roles, then we need to start sooner. We can't wait until you need them on August 1st, and then you let me know. Then on August 7th, you're saying, where are my people? Because you can do that with majority males much more easily in most roles than you can if you're working in a larger pool. A more diverse pool. There just aren't as many readily available that meet all your exacting standards for success. Because first of all, the whole world can't work in these roles anyway. So you've already wiped out 90-some% of the world, right? Because they don't have either the experience or the academics or the location or whatever. So most people don't fit anyway. So then when you put this other element on it, that raises the bar that much higher. So if you can get a running start, that could be helpful. And the other piece is, how do you think about are you willing to relocate people in? You work remotely, because that can accelerate your pool. So I think you said you live in the Valley, Silicon Valley, Central California. Okay, so in some parts of the Valley, you only have what you have. But if you say it's remote, so now I can get people out of Denver or Phoenix. Now I have, a much broader pool from which to get my talent. So that's another angle. But if you say they have to come from this county in this place, you have to start earlier. You have to develop relationships with potential candidates, earlier, and develop them so they, like James was talking, with the international students. Well, let's have opportunities for you to get to understand our company, or be aware of our company, that we even exist, then understand what makes us a good place to work and what makes us different. And then over time, maybe there's an opportunity to grab someone that came in that way and convert them into a potential candidate. So
Gotcha.
those are a couple ideas that could potentially work.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot more sense. The way we operate is we usually have a hiring plan that needs to be approved before we start looking at these roles, but that makes sense to look ahead. Duh.
Yeah, I mean, it does. Well, I'm working with a couple of big companies right now, and I convinced them. One of them is a big consulting firm, one of those global consulting firms. And I said, well, let's get a head start. And we placed 5 people, all quite senior consultants with a McKinsey kind of competitor, in like 100 days, which is unheard of. Usually it takes 100 days to do one person. We placed 5, and 2 people didn't accept the offers because the offers didn't work. You know how it is it either works for you or it doesn't. It didn't work for them. But it wasn't that it was a bad offer. It just wasn't the right everything for everybody. So that was something new that they hadn't tried before. So, that you basically, you can't run the same playbook. you can't run the same playbook if you want different kind of outcomes. They say that about insanity, but it's not really insanity. It's just you suddenly want a different thing, but you want to run it through the same. Where does that work? Show me example. You have to work really hard to find examples where, here are the 6 steps that we always take, but I don't want number 7 to be the output. But I don't want it 7 now. I want it to be 12. But you still have to go through the same 6 steps. Well, the likelihood that it's going to be 12 is really low. It's possible, but it's low. Because it's just low. So you say, well, can we tweak step number 2 or step number 5? Let's play with we have to order them the same way. What if we change the order around? But you can't just, what doesn't work is repeating the same and expecting different. That rarely is the key to success. Now, Daniel, I know you're driving, Daniel, but we got to hear from you.
I myself is an international student, and I joined this chapter like 2 years ago. My university is like not, it's pretty much diverse though. Like we're in California State University, Fresno, and yeah, we have tons of international students who are in economics. I myself is in entrepreneurship, so I like to think outside of the box. But there is one thing like I've been in like officer position like 2 times before, and I'm taking a fundraising officer this semester, and then what I noticed is like it is in reality like it is really hard to motivate like people to engage in the events, especially in the virtual world, um even within a comedy, like do you have any like tips to how to encourage like comedy members? For me, what I do is like whenever there's achievements, things like that, I told them like it's not just not because of me, this the team wants because of their effort. That's why like events went successful and stuff. um and then I also told them like give small tasks to be done, like not really like heavy tasks, that kind of stuff. But I feel like I'm not good enough to motivate very well. And is there any like tips for me?
Well, it's quite different doing things like we are compared to if we were together in a classroom or some meeting space. So I think you have to challenge yourself and maybe the group sometimes to say, well, how can we make this more interesting and more fun? Or, Shonda and I were talking before, how do we, we have polling questions to make it, rather than me just yakking at you to nonstop, to try and have you intersperse. So sometimes you can rotate the agenda. So everybody is forced to lead a piece of the agenda, for example. So if you have a 7-person thing and you have 4 agenda topics, well, 4 people do it this time, maybe 4 different people do it the next time. So I think, and then sometimes asking the group, well, what would you like to do? Because they may say, oh, well, I'd like to do fill in the blank. And it's like, oh, well, I'd have never thought of that, but that's a great idea. So let's try that next time. So that, and then if you try my idea, guess what? I'm a lot more interested if it's my idea to say, let's meet at 7 in the morning versus 7 at night or whatever, whatever their suggestions may be. So that could help you. And again, some different people might have other ideas for events. If the events aren't getting excitement, maybe there might be some other ideas that they may find that could be more stimulating for them, or they want to try, that may help you. Hopefully that's a couple of decent ideas. I don't know, you other guys have some thoughts for Dan?
Good thoughts. It's like you said at the beginning, as you were responding to Daniel, right now it's different. It's harder. It's, there's no tried and true ways of being successful with it. So I think, Daniel, you just have to try different ways and asking others what would engage them more, what would they like to do. I think that kind of stuff is always helpful, like Dwayne mentioned. Excellent. Additional questions or thoughts, Jim?
I was going to say, one of the things is actually verbalizing, like what are your goals, what you want to see happen and everything. Like sometimes you may have it in your head as far as like, okay, I want to do XYZ because it'll accomplish this. But does your team know that? So if you don't express that to them, then maybe they don't have that same kind of buy-in. They don't understand why, you're taking the route that you're going and everything like that. And then, whenever you kind of lay it out for them of, this is why I want to do this because I want to achieve this goal, they can say, hey, that's something that I agree with, and so, okay, now I understand, what they're driving for. I can be a part of that to help it along. Or if nothing else, they kind of see that you want to make it there. So then they feel that need to maybe help you, try to reach that goal. Or maybe they offer other ideas of like, well, this is how I could see, it may work and everything, like Dwayne had said, sometimes it's just having that different kind of point of view and everything. It brings in an idea that you maybe never considered. So it's one of those things you just kind of got to be open and honest with people. And I think more often than not, a lot of people tend to appreciate that. And they get, a little bit more excited about it whenever they understand, why you're working so hard to try to accomplish something.
Yeah, great suggestions, man.
All right. Any other questions for Dwayne or thoughts or things you want to talk about? Dwayne, any final words of wisdom to your audience?
No, I think part of this is how do you to steal a little bit from James? How do you think about your goals for your team, your organization? How do you get the human resources that can enable you to exceed whatever your goals are? I have one brief thing that came to mind that I wasn't even planning to share, but I've been doing this for 13 years, and I have had a stretch goal that the best I've ever been able to do was hit 90% of that stretch goal. So I'm a believer of having really big goals. This year, I will more than double my stretch goal. So always think that there's a possibility, that there's a way out there. I just need to find it. It's not, is there a way? There is a way. I just have to keep turning the knobs. I need to learn. I need to work harder. I need to get smarter. I need to read a different book. I need to read a different magazine. Need to keep tweaking the things to get better. And so if I keep getting better and I keep working at my craft, I can come close to achieving my stretch goal. And your stretch goal should be that, a stretch goal, to be way better than you ever think you can be. Way better. Don't set a goal that you can achieve. Set a goal that, man, if I got that, I'd be a superhero kind of goal. So I haven't lived to my thing, but I was like, I thought that was a stretch goal. but it is like so phenomenal to I have to set a new one.
Congratulations on doubling your goal. I think you've
doubling my stretch goal.
I know, that's amazing. I think you need a cape and a hat and that's awesome.
I thought I'd be looking like James to talk about doing what I did, a young guy. I'm like, I'm not even a young guy, and it's just incredible. So I think, so I think about that, right? So if as someone early in your career journeys where you all are, that's why, and I literally thought I had a crazy goal for me. So I challenge you, and I love that you're a stay-at-home dad, and it's too bad that needs a handle. You're just a parent, right? You happen to have a different configuration than other households. But, I in one of the books that I've written, I encourage people to have goals around 10 different areas and just push them way out there, way out there. And they're your goal, your goals. You don't have to share them with everyone, because some people will try and knock you off your goal. That's a stupid goal and all that. So you know what goals you can share with what people, right? You can't share every goal with your sibling or your best friend, because it's not necessarily right for that person. But there are people who are in your life who you share a particular goal. They can inspire you and nudge you and ask about it. How are you doing against that particular goal? How's your family goal coming? Somebody else, how's your wealth goal? How's your work goal? How's your vacation goal? How's your sports goal? Your activity. But you have all these goals, but you want to, push it out there. Be the best dad ever. What's that mean? Well, define best dad, and just strive to be that. The best recruiter ever. What's that mean? I get the talent the fastest, the best, and they stay the longest. But see what I'm saying? You just want to push yourself to just incredible possibilities. And I think they are there for you to achieve. And they inspire you every day. It's not you're trying to inspire your neighbor, you're trying to inspire yourself to be your best you. And I was sharing with my daughter, you should be better next quarter than this quarter. And guess what? If you're better next quarter than this quarter, when next year, July comes around, guess what? You're going to be better than now. And where you are at this stage, you have to be better every quarter. You can't be the same. You've got to be better. Better at what is for you to decide, but you've got to be better. And if you are, the better friends, better reading, better this, better that, better learning, better. What are you going to be better at? And then go do it. And believe me, next year you'll be better than you are right now. And think about that 3 years from now. So that's my last word, Shonda.
All right. Well, those are good words to part with. So, well, if there's nothing more, thank you everybody for attending today. Dwain, thank you so much. Always love to hear your messages and the great information you provide. We'll definitely get you back again here in the next few months for some other engaging topic. And to the rest of you, enjoy the rest of your afternoon or evening, wherever you are. Jim, you can be a success with your daughter. Go feed her. It's almost dinner time there. So, I'm sure food will make you a better daddy for the day.
Yeah. India,
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. And Dwayne, it's Delta